hate a moral coward, one who lacks the manly spark. I just detest a man afraid to go home in the dark. I always spend my evenings where there's woman, wine, and song. But like a man, I always bring my little wife along. I'm a member of the midnight crew. I'm a night owl and a wise bird too. Home with the milk in the morning, singing the same old song. Rise with the moon, go to bed with the sun. Early to bed and you'll miss all the fun. Bring your wife in trouble, it will never trouble you. Make her a member of the midnight crew. The fun, it doesn't start till 12 on happy old Broadway. So what's the use of going home until the break of day? Now something confidential, whisper not above a breath. I once went home at 2 a.m. and scared my wife to death. I'm a member of the midnight crew. I'm a night owl and a wise bird too. Home with the milk in the morning, singing the same old song. Rise with the moon, go to bed with the sun. Early to bed and you'll miss all the fun. Bring your wife in trouble, it will never trouble you. Make her a member of the midnight crew. I never shall forget the night I made 6 hours run. Although I didn't have a knife, a blackjack, or a gun, I proved myself a hero of a very high degree. I ran for home and 6 of them were running after me. I'm a member of the midnight crew. I'm a night owl and a wise bird too. Home with the milk in the morning, singing the same old song. Rise with the moon, go to bed with the sun. Early to bed and you'll miss all the fun. Bring your wife in trouble, it will never trouble you. Make her a member of the midnight crew.
Before the Hunger Games or Star Wars or Avatar, long before we had Humphrey Bogart, Alfred Hitchcock, or Ingrid Bergman, we had silent films. Today, I want to talk to you about the silent film era. First of all, the silent film era took place between 1895 and 1927. This is also known as the age of the silver screen. Most people aren't exactly sure about where films all started, but they started about 1895, and at that time, people figured out how to have motion picture technology work, but they didn't have a way to sync it up with sound technology. So moving picture technology way ahead of sound technology. This did not bother people in theaters because they'd never seen anything like this. These are people who are only familiar with still pictures, which is pretty exciting to get your portrait taken back in the 1800s. And so imagine what it would be like to all of a sudden be able to see yourself not only in a picture, but actually moving in a picture. This was fascinating for people at the time, and so the fact that there wasn't sound certainly would be bizarre for us today, but it was not at all for people during the age of the silver screen. This was very, very exciting for them. This development was created by a couple of people. The most prominent names in film production at the beginning of film production would be the Lumiere brothers, Auguste and Louis Lumiere, who are French. They produced what are considered the first silent films in Paris in 1895 and around that area, around that period of time. And we use film here in a very loose term. Basically, they helped discover or figure out how to make pictures move, the motion pictures. And so their first films, and we use film in quotation mark, was basically them showing off the technology. And so today I want to show you what is often considered the first film ever made, and there was a series of them that the Lumiere brothers made, and one of the most popular ones is this one that I'm going to show you right now, which is called Train Coming into Station, basically. You can see the French title at the bottom of the screen here, and here it is. Okay, this doesn't seem like much for us, of course. We look at this and go, really, is that all? But when this came out in 1897, audiences who saw this often at traveling shows, they'd come into a small theater and be shown this. It was basically to show off this technology. They were amazed by this, and early stories of this are of audience members ducking when the train came towards them because they were so naive about how this worked. They thought an actual train was heading right for them, which is kind of funny, of course, to think about today. Not until a few years later did directors start to realize that they could use this technology to tell stories. So our first films, you have to put air quotes around films here, because really what they are shots to basically prove that the technology worked. When we think about the silent film era, we think about our first movie stars, and we are definitely a culture who's fascinated with our movie stars, and it really started with the silent film era. The most popular star during the silent film era was none other than Charlie Chaplin. Certainly you have heard of Charlie Chaplin. He was no doubt the silent film's most popular star. You can see him here on the right-hand side of the screen, famously portraying his character that was seen in almost all of his films, which was known as the Tramp. He was a comedic actor, mostly did things that were slapstick-style comedy, hilarious, talented guy, multifaceted. His most famous films you can see on the bottom here: The Gold Rush, Modern Times, City Lights, and then his first spoken word film that came after the silent film era, which is called The Great Dictator. I'm a huge fan of these movies, and I hope you get an opportunity at some point to see one of his full-length movies. Outstanding stuff. Here's a scene from Charlie Chaplin's film, The Gold Rush. A little bit lesser known, but certainly as important is the woman who's known as the First Lady of American cinema. Her name is Lillian Gish. She was one of the stars of the film that we've talked about, The Birth of a Nation. Her film career kept going well beyond the silent film era. 75-year career, as you can see here, and she's credited with pioneering the fundamental film performing techniques that you still see today. In addition, you should definitely know about Rudolph Valentino. Rudolph Valentino, as you can certainly see in this picture here, was a pretty darn good-looking guy. He's considered Hollywood's first sex symbol. He starred in all kinds of different silent films, but most of his films were dramatic, romance pictures, adventure stories. His famous ones, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and The Sheik, very, very popular films, widely known for their dramatic effect. He died young, you can see here, at the age of 31. And it was quoted in stories about him that this caused mass hysteria among his female fans and propelled him into iconic status. You think about Beatlemania or Bieber fever, this guy got that and then some. People went crazy. Early stories tell about women fainting in the movie theaters when he came on screen. How about that? Next guy is often talked about alongside of Charlie Chaplin. His name is Buster Keaton, who is another silent film comedy star. Slightly different from Chaplin. Chaplin known for kind of slapstick comedy. This guy, Buster Keaton, is really known for his physical comedy and the stunts. His most famous movie is called The General. It's about him and a train. And he did all kinds of cool stunts around this train. He did all of his own stunts, running on top of a moving train, all these sorts of things. He's known as the Great Stone Face. You can see this in his picture right here. Very much found his humor. The movies were humorous because of this deadpan face that he would give during scenes, which made audiences really laugh. Funny stuff. I want to show you one scene from a short that he did from this movie called Our Hospitality, and you get a sense of his kind of humor with this particular scene.